Hello, welcome to course 103 Rural Society and Polity as part of BBA Rural Management Program. Unit 2 Rural Society, its basic social structure. Lesson 2 Tribes in Rural India. The lesson 2 gives an overview of tribes as distinct social groups. Its objective is to lay out the context of tribal groups living in rural India. The structure of the lesson that I will follow is first defining a tribe, know how to recognize a group is being classified as a tribe, look at tribe as a socio-cultural identity as being distinct from it being a politico-administrative identity, familiarizing with what are scheduled tribes, denotified tribes and nomadic tribes, and also the terms Adivasi and indigenous. Look at the measures taken by the state for development of tribal groups, their development versus protection debate, and lastly look at where do tribal issues stand today. To begin with, let us look at some statistics. India has over 600 tribes spread across different parts, from the Himalayas to Lakshadweep and from Gujarat to the northeastern states. Out of India's total population, about 8.6% is tribal, and of this 8.6%, most of it, or nearly 90%, lives in rural areas. And if you just look at India's total rural population, then nearly 11.3% of it is tribal. In terms of number, the maximum population or the maximum number of tribal persons is found in the state of Madhya Pradesh, followed by Maharashtra. In terms of percentage of tribal population to the total population of the state, the northeastern states of Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Meghalaya and Mizoram have more than 40% of the state population as tribal. In the map that we see, these states are highlighted in dark green and followed by states with 20 to 40% population being tribal, like Manipur, Tripura, Sikkim in the northeast, and Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh in central India, Odisha and Jharkhand in the east. These states are highlighted in a lighter shade of green. If we look at some of the tribal groups that we find across different states, so in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh we find the Korwas, the Saharias, the Bhils. In Odisha we find the Kons. In Rajasthan we'll see the Meenas, the Bhils. In Jharkhand we come across the Santhals, the Orwans. So what is a tribe? How do we define it? The word tribe is derived from the Latin word tribus, and the current meaning of tribe as we commonly use in English language, it actually took shape during the colonial period, and during this time the notion of primitiveness was a key factor and element in understanding tribes. Let us look at some of the key definition of a tribe, of what a tribe is. According to the Imperial Gazetteer of 1965, a tribe is a collection of families bearing a common name, speaking a common dialect and occupying a common territory, and usually not endogamous. The Dictionary of Anthropology defines tribe as a social group which has a social area, a dialect, there is cultural homogeneity, there is a unifying social organization, and ordinarily a tribe has a leader, may have a common ancestor and a patron deity. And the families or the people who make a tribe, they are linked through economic, social, religious, family or blood ties. According to anthropologist D.N. Majumdar, a tribe is a collection of families bearing a common name, members to which occupy the same territory, speak the same language, observe certain taboos with regard to marriage, or profession or occupation, and there is a system of reciprocity that they follow. For S.E. Sinha, anthropologist, tribe is defined in terms of its isolation. from the center of civilization. And tribal societies are usually sustained by primitive subsistence technology like shifting, cultivation or hunting and gathering, and they also have an egalitarian social system and follow non-literate tradition. So from these various definitions we can bring out the distinct, a few distinct features or elements of what is seen as a tribe. So broadly we can say that a tribe is a group of people with common ancestry, occupy the same territory, speak the same language, and this language is of a non-literate or pre-literate tradition. They have economic, social and religious ties, and they engage in a subsistence economy. Now it's also important to note that tribal societies are small in scale. Their social, legal, political relations are limited in scale, and tribal languages are unwritten, and the extent of the communication is also narrow, and the economy is compact and self-sufficient. Moreover, tribal communities came to be understood as distinct from the center of civilization or the mainstream community. This meant that they came to be conceptualized in relation to the larger Indian society. And in India, tribe therefore has been compared and defined in comparison to the caste system. When compared to the caste system, tribal communities are seen as egalitarian and homogeneous, and do not exhibit social differentiation or hierarchy or inequality like we see in the case of castes. But tribes actually appear to be homogeneous only relative to caste, because each tribe is very different from another tribe in terms of its population size, in terms of the mode of living, the cultural contact, etc. So in India, tribes can be divided and classified based on their geographical or regional distribution, based on their language, and based on their ethnic roots. So based on geography or region, we have tribes in the northeast region, in the sub-Himalayan region, in central and east India, south India and western India. So in northeast we find the Garos, the Kukis, Mizos, the Nagas. In Himalayas we come across the Gujars, the Gaddis, the Jaunsari in Uttarakhand. We find the Begas and Bhils in central and east India. In South India we have the Chenchus, the Koyas for example. We also have the Bhils in western India. Based on language, tribal groups can be classified into the Austric, Tibeto-Chinese, Dravidian or Indo-European, and some examples within these are, so the Nagas, Khasis and Kukis or Mizos we find fall into the Tibeto-Chinese group. The Gonds and the Koyas or the Orans fall into the Dravidian language group, and we have the Bhils who fall into the Indo-European group. So based on their ethnicity or ethnic root, they can be categorized into the Mongoloid, the Proto-Australoid or the Negrito. So the tribes of the northeast region, like the Nagas, Mizos, they fall within the Mongoloid category. We have the Todas or the Koyas, for instance, they come into the category of Negritos based on their ethnic root. Now the term Adivasi and or indigenous people are also often used for tribe. Adivasi is generally used as an umbrella term to refer to all the pristine inhabitants of a land, and indigenous is used for those who have been living on a land before colonization and they have been marginalized due to colonization. And they have their own economic, social, cultural institutions and laws. In India, the administrative definition of tribes has been different from the way anthropologists have conceptualized it. Now, anthropologists focus on the socio-cultural identity and see them as people who represent a stage of development in human society or as those who have particular social formations. Whereas in terms of the politico-administrative identity, they are seen as people who have their own distinct language, culture, territory and government. Tribe as a socio-cultural identity, anthropologists conceptualize tribe as a cultural isolate. That tribe is self-contained and it has limited relations with other communities, and to understand its social organization and way of life, one doesn't have to refer to other communities or the world outside of the tribal community. So while anthropologists earlier regarded tribe and saw it in terms of the isolation element, whether geographical, social or cultural, and use that as a criterion to define a tribe, I was also looked at as more or less a fixed system. But later this kind of emphasis changed, and it shifted to see the tribe's attempt for asserting its own identity. There was a shift to see that a tribe strengthening its identity is a constant process. Its identity with its past, its struggle, the protest, and all of these are regarded as important to the cultural identity of the community. When we talk about the politico-administrative identity, tribe, like I mentioned earlier, is recognized as people with their own language, culture, territory and government, and as a pre-literate localized social group, the members of which speak a common dialect. The Constitution of India recognizes tribal communities as scheduled tribes. In Article 352 of the Indian Constitution, tribes or tribal communities are understood in terms of their historical background of backwardness, primitiveness, geographical isolation, shyness, social, educational and economic backwardness are the different traits that distinguish scheduled tribe communities from other communities. The Constitution, in addition to scheduled tribes, also lists the denotified and nomadic tribes. Scheduled tribes. It was before independence that tribes were first scheduled under the Government of India Act 1935. Until 1937, British categorized them as backward groups, and after independence, the groups which were identified as tribes during British rule were reclassified as scheduled tribes after the Constitution was adopted in 1950. Today, there are over 600 tribes recognized in India, and the Indian state felt that there is a need to grant benefits to these groups as their socio-economic conditions were marked by poverty, backwardness and low human development indicators. By human development indicators, we mean key dimensions of human development, a long and healthy life, being knowledgeable, access to education and having a decent standard of living. Denotified tribes. During the British time, there were criminal tribes who posed a threat to the law and order, and they were considered as hereditary criminals. And they, because of being identified as such, they had to face surveillance, confinement and even discrimination. So in 1952, the use of the phrase criminal tribes was discontinued and replaced with denotified tribes. There are 198 denotified tribes in India. Nomadic tribes. Nomadic tribes are essentially groups of people who make a living with movement, and they are not sedentary or permanently settled. They are constantly on the move or seasonally on the move. There are 313 such tribes recognized in India. They practice occupations like pastoralism and hunting and gathering. With the advent of the British rule, tribal groups had to become a part of the larger colonial structure and administration. They came under the uniform civil law, all of which was alien to tribal society. Also, the British administration took over the right on forests, and as a result, tribal groups got denied their right to collect fuel wood and other forest produce. With the advent of the British rule, tribal groups had to become a part of the larger colonial structure and administration. They came under the uniform civil law, all of which was alien to tribal society. Also, the British administration took over the right on forests, and as a result, tribal groups got denied their right to collect fuel wood and other forest produce. if we see after independence, a lot of efforts were made for the protection and welfare of tribal groups, and tribal issues became an important area of concern to take measures for affirmative action and their development. Now, the approach towards tribal groups had, and how to integrate them had two advocates, Perrier Elwin and G.S. Ghurye. Elwin advocated for isolation, whereas Ghurye pressed for assimilation. Now, India's nationalist leadership adopted an approach which served both the objectives. So, which means it adopted an approach that provided for development, but at the same time also safeguarded and protected the interests of the tribes. So, in this sense, the tribal policy that has been inscribed in the Indian Constitution is premised on integration of tribal groups. In the areas where scheduled tribes are dominant, there are two distinct administrative arrangements that have been made in the Constitution of India in the form of the 5th and 6th schedules. The basic thrust of the 5th and the 6th schedule is to protect the cultural distinctiveness of the tribal areas, and both provide protection for the economic disadvantages, and they can maintain their identity without facing any coercion. And these two schedules also chart out special governance mechanisms. So, the 5th schedule applies to 10 states: Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Rajasthan and Telangana. The 6th schedule is for the northeastern states of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram, and for some of the other northeastern states, other provisions have been made, like Article 371A for Nagaland, 371C for Manipur and 371G for Mizoram. There is also the category of particularly vulnerable tribal groups called PVTGs, which were earlier known as the primitive tribal groups. So, even among the different tribal groups, these are the groups that have been seen to have even greater vulnerability, and they have been classified so in order to support an improvement in their conditions, as they have particularly low human development indices. Currently, there are 75 such groups that have been identified, basis of having forest dependent livelihoods, having a pre-agricultural level of existence, or having a either stagnant or declining population. Tribal subplans. It's one of the efforts and measures that has been taken by the Indian state to support and promote development of tribal groups. Now, these are special multi-purpose development projects that have been introduced in the tribal areas, the tribal subplans and the integrated tribal development projects. The tribal subplan focuses on area development and improving the quality of life of the tribal communities in terms of access to education, health services, housing, income generating opportunities, and also protection against any form of exploitation and oppression. And the idea is to channelize the benefits from the central government to the development of tribal population in the identified states with which have large tribal population. And the tribal subplans are led by the Tribal Welfare Department of the respective states. Now, there has been a debate that has been highlighted by scholars and tribal welfare activists, that on the one hand, there are efforts being made by the Indian state for integration and protection of tribes, but on the other hand, the same state also takes measures that keep the groups excluded. How? This is seen as a conflict between the interest of the mainstream national development versus the interest and development of tribals. So, for example, several large scale development projects like construction of dams, mining that are carried out in the habitats where tribals have been living for many generations, these projects have benefited the larger Indian community, but for the tribals it has led to loss of control over their resource and over their livelihood. So, scholars from various disciplines like historians, economists, political scientists, they have been trying to bring this issue to the forefront, and today we see that the articulation of a tribal identity is also being spearheaded by them and by a growing middle class. Let's understand this debate with the example of forests. Many tribes have been greatly dependent on the forest for their day-to-day subsistence needs of food, shelter, medicine, even clothing. As long as tribes had unrestricted use of forest and the forest produce, they did not face any challenge in meeting their needs. Now, with the coming of the British, this changed. For the British, a forest was an important source of revenue, and like mentioned earlier, they introduced state control over forest resource. This in turn curtailed the rights of the tribal group over forest resources. And after independence, this policy continued, though it was justified as being necessary for the wider national public interest. However, the same had consequences for on the access for the tribes. With two significant steps that have been undertaken, there has been a change in this status. So, first is the provision of Panchayat's Extension to Scheduled Areas Act, commonly known as PESA, of 1996, and the second is the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forests Act, that is FRA of 2006. These two have been very significant initiatives that have changed this kind of status that was carried from the British into post-independent India, and these two acts were enacted to redress the kind of historical injustice that tribal and forest communities faced. The FRA ensures that forest dwelling, scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers are not evicted or removed from forest land, and that there is a process of recognition and verification of their rights. Under FRA, they have been given user right over forest produce, the non-timber or minor forest produce. Tribal groups in rural India have seen the impact of mobility and change. There are various examples of tribes transforming themselves into the larger entity of the caste system. There are some who have taken to Christianity or Islam, and we also see that some of the tribal groups have joined the ranks of peasantry. Or become wage laborers in industries, plantations, or in mining. In the concept of tribe, there are aspects of mobility and change that have been witnessed in contemporary rural society. To conclude the lesson, I leave you with an activity. In your view, what are the ways in which tribal groups can be integrated into the development agenda without losing their distinct identity? Thank you.